So, last time we spoke, we found out what voices were in the song and what those voices were doing. So, the tenor and the bass voices were the ones really holding the notes for a longer amount of time. And I would say the bass voice reminded me of the color blue, whereas the tenor voice reminded me of maybe the color white, where the alto voice was moving the most. So I would say maybe that one was more like the color of red or orange. And the soprano voice, we really didn't hear it do much. We heard it sound this note like a once. So let's hear what the soprano might say in the song, what story it's telling when it's given a spotlight. Well, the soprano voice decided for itself that it does not need support. So while we recognize the song as the song, we know now that we can use the soprano voice to break away from what already is the song. So, one thing we can do is react or replace what we already assume is to be there. One thing we can do is make a message to ourselves what each part is doing independently. I would say the bass voice also questions the song, less so makes questioning the song an everyday act. Normal, in brackets. The tenor voice does the song truest, holds the song to be I don't know. I would say holds the song, I almost want to say accountable for itself. Holds the song to be accountable for itself. The alto voice has the most movement along with the masculine voices, ultimately goes back and forth between accepting the song as law and questioning how true to the law must they be. The soprano voice is independent. So while I would say they all have their own dependence. So let's say the alto voice, I would think, would be sort of codependent, possibly. The soprano voice is independent. Then the tenor bass voices are interdependent. But I don't fully know what I mean by saying that. I think I want to give each of them a dependence on each other, so that way it almost seems like they're providing information for the other to use, to bounce off of. But it's not so much that these voices are presenting this, as much as the key that they're in is allowing and providing this. So it's almost like their world is the key. And that's where the information that they play and sing comes from. It comes from their world. So while this figure that can be represented in either clef, E flat to C to D flat to C, is the voice of the society. That's what society is saying over and over again. That's what they think is normal. They do have their own thoughts in this world that they're in. Soprano voice is the only one that broke away from these voices, or really the dependence that these voices have on one another at all. So we could possibly listen to the bass bring it in first. Then the alto comes in to let us know what's law and what feeling are like. So if the alto voice relies on the bass voice to give us the voice of the society, so that way we know what wondering what identity looks like within the song. And the tenor voice honestly holds truest to the song by going back and forth between really the fewest amount of notes, I would say. I would say that the tenor voice would come in, I want to say next, but I really want to say that the tenor voice would come in along with either the alto voice still doing what she does, or the bass voice still doing what he's doing. So neither one of them is more right than the other. So we'll just put arrows leading to tenor, tenor, right? So if something, then the tenor starts singing. If something happens here, then this happens. So there needs to be a trigger for the next voice to sound. Maybe she begins to have so many questions that she goes to the tenor for help. So if rapidly switching between mood A and mood B, or if switching between mood A and mood B grows increasingly what? If switching between mood A and mood B grows increasingly frequent, grows more and more frequent, right, grows more and more frequent, tenor comes in, holds true to song, softer, eases mind. Now, let's say that the bass has something to say. So let's say if the bass voice grows softer and softer, or more weary, what would the tenor do? Let's say the tenor is the voice of reason. Almost like an elder. Let's say the alto is man. Just in need of guidance. And let's say the bass voice is, who is the bass? Also questions the song, less so. Makes questioning the song an everyday act. It honestly is normal for it to do this. So if the key is the world, this figure is a song that rings frequently throughout the society, so the voices that the world is saying very often, or most of the day when it's operating, it just runs as this. Man has and asks its questions. It knows what song it should be singing, but it can't help but feel as though more can be there. It is in need of guidance. And so the bass voice creates this sort of pad, place in which these questions can be asked. And so underneath this place, we see that there are very many questions. It's normal to have questions. It's normal to diversify your understanding of things. And so I would like to place the bass as the earth, or almost like the crust right under the mantle. The id, but that's not necessary for it to be that. Then the soprano voice is heavens. I would say she can say whatever she wants. And man will follow. This is the song. 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 Improvising is great. And also, we have an environment now. Now we have an environment. So it's like, place these ideals within the environment, allow them the freedom to work in connection to one another, and see what can be done in that way. I would say if the key is their world, this phrase is the voice of the society. The base is the earth. It is the happenings underneath, which allows it to be normal to ask questions about your society, about your world. Man has all kinds of questions. They want to sing the song, but they also want to know what they want to know. That means that they're going to constantly flip between what is the law and what is true to them. There are ones who have lived, who know that both are right. It is normal to have questions. And the reason why we stick to the song, it is because